Well, the first thing to notice about this stamp is its size. Quite a bit larger than most stamps, sitting at 60 by 40 millimeters. And it features an old plane from the early days of flying. Underneath it is the name of the plane, Blériot. The currency is the quetzal, and this stamp is the value of 10 centavos because this stamp is from Guatemala. On the left we have aviation, meaning plane, and on the right 1921 to 1971. And at the bottom we have the words Cincuentenario Aviación Militar, meaning the 50th anniversary of military aviation. The cancellation is not clear enough to read, but looking it up I learned that this stamp was issued in 1972. What's interesting about this stamp is the plane itself. This Blériot plane has shown up on a number of stamps around the world, and I just keep bumping into them. But before we take a look at the other stamps or try to understand why it's featured on a Guatemalan stamp, let's first take a look at the plane. So this particular plane is the Blériot XI. It was developed and flown by Louis Blériot in 1909. Like all planes at the time, it was made from canvas and wire. And as you just heard, it was powered by an adapted motorcycle engine. Now, why is this plane so important? Well, the Wright brothers successfully fly their plane for the first time in 1903. But 5.5 years later, nobody's flown over any large body of water yet. This is until the Daily Mail announces a competition, giving £1,000 to the first person that can cross the English Channel between England and France. A few people attempt, and nobody's successful until Louis Blériot in July of 1909. So on the morning of July 25th, 1909, to an excited crowd of spectators, Louis takes off from Calais, and flying without any real instruments, including a compass, he makes the journey and crash lands in Dover. He was a hero, and the story was covered around the world. This wasn't just the first flight over the English Channel. This was the first international flight, the first overseas flight. It really changed the way people viewed these flying machines. And in a few short years, flying advanced so much that there were world wars happening in the sky, and people, mail, and goods were traveling really quickly around the world. Just reading about this pioneer era in aviation is incredible. These guys were building and boldly flying these dangerous machines with little concern of safety at all. It's satirically depicted in the movie Magnificent Men and Their Flying Machines for the right reason. These pilots were incredibly brave and pushed everything beyond its limits, oftentimes failing and resulting in injuries and death. But because of that time, the focus and interest in planes became intense, and in a few short years, people were traveling all over the world in planes. Now back to the stamps. You can find stamps from around the world celebrating this achievement in aviation, either depicting the Blériot XI or Louis Blériot himself. I also found this Australia stamp that commemorates the start of airmail in Australia using a Blériot XI. Also, the United States celebrates an achievement that they put on their airmail stamp in 1993. This is Harriet Quimby. She was the first female to get a pilot's license in the United States. Also the first female to fly across the English Channel, but because it was the day after the Titanic sank, she didn't get much attention. She, of course, was flying a Blériot XI as well, until she fell out of it. Yeah. Now back to the Guatemala stamp. There's actually a pair of stamps commemorating the 50-year anniversary of their military aviation. It all began in 1921 when Guatemala opened up a flying training school equipped with Blériot XIs. So keep a lookout for the Blériot XI. You should find it in a number of stamps fairly easily. So that brings us to the end of this episode. Please remember to subscribe. Until next time, happy collecting.